यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्.
Okay, so today we are going to listen to two chapters in combination, that is chapter 11 and chapter 18, which is about glorification of phallic emblem of Lord Shiva, that is how to worship Shivling form of Lord Shiva and how it grants liberation. And we shall also learn what is bondage, how to become liberated souls. So it's a very important chapter, and I think it's worth enough to spend some time and hear this, because this is what we all have been looking forward to understand what is keeping us bound to these worldly desires and what is the means to achieve complete freedom from all our miseries. So here there is a conversation happening between sages and Surji. The sages said, "O foremost among those who know everything, please explain the nature of bondage and liberation." Surji said, "I shall explain bondage, liberation, and the means of liberation. Please listen attentively. A Jeev is said to be in bondage if he is tied up by the noose of eightfold primary essences, Prakriti, etc. When freed from them, he is called liberated. Perfect control and subjugation of Prakriti and its offshoots is called as salvation. A Jeev in bondage, when freed from it, is called a liberated soul." So here now comes the explanation of what are these 8 types of bondages. The set of 8 that binds is: number 1, Prakriti, that is the nature. Second is Buddhi, that is cosmic intellect. Third is Ahankar, which is cosmic ego. And the fifth is the Tanmatras, which is our 5 senses. So 5 senses along with 3, that is Prakriti, Buddhi and Ahankar, makes it 8. So these are the 8 bondage under which a human being remains in control. And this chapter mentions how to become free from all of this. The body is evolved out of these 8. The body carries on activities. The activities generate the body. Thus, birth and activities continue in a series. The body is of 3 types: the gross body, the subtle one, and the casual one. And these 3 different types of bodies does 3 different or performs 3 different functions. The gross body is responsible for all the activities. The subtle body yields the enjoyments and pleasures through the senses. The casual body is for the sake of experiencing the good and bad results of the activities of Jeev. The Jeev experiences happiness as a result of virtue and miseries as a result of sin that are committed. The Jeev, bound by the rope of activities, revolves round and round forever like a wheel, by means of the 3 types of body and their activities. The creator of the wheel must be worshipped for the cessation of the revolution of this wheel. The Prakriti, etc., constitute the great wheel, and Shiv is beyond the Prakriti. That's why he is also called as Sadashiv. He is beyond the time, he is beyond the boundaries. The creator of the wheel is Lord Shiv. He is beyond the Prakriti, just as a boy drinks or spits out water as he pleases. So also Shiv keeps Prakriti, etc., just as he pleases. He is called Shiv because he has brought it under his control. Shiv alone is omniscient, perfect, and free from all desires. The mental prowess of Maheshwar, which Vedas alone can comprehend, consists of omniscience, satiety, beginningless, understanding, independence, never failing, and an infinite power. Hence, Prakriti, etc. come under the control due to Shiva's grace. One shall worship Shiva alone for the acquisition of Shiva's grace. If one were to ask, how can there be a selfless worship of a perfect being? The answer is, an activity done with dedication to Shiva shall cause pleasure to him. Keeping Shiva in view, the devotee shall worship the phallic or the embodied image of Shiva or his devotee. He shall worship his devotee by means of the body, mind, speech, and money spent. Shiv, the great Lord, who is beyond this Prakriti, is delighted at the worship and specially blesses the worshipper. The karam or the karma, etc., come under control gradually due to Shiva's grace. Beginning with karma and ending with prakriti, when everything comes under control, the jeev is called liberated and he shines as a self-realized person. By the grace of Shiva, when this body, which is resultant from activities, which is also called as karmadeh, comes under the control, the devotee attains residence in Shivalok. And this is called Salokya form of liberation. When the subtle elements come under the control, the devotee attains nearness to Shiva, which is called as Samipya form of liberation. Then he attains similarity with Shiva by means of weapons and activities. This is called as Sarupya, which is similar face, same roop. When the devotee acquires the great favor, the cosmic intellect too comes under the control. The cosmic intellect is only an effect of Prakriti. The control of intellect is called Sarasti. This Sarasti is also a form of liberation wherein devotee has the same rank and power as Shiva. This, due to further great favor of Shiva, the Prakriti comes under the control. The mental prowess of Shiva becomes his without any difficulty. On acquiring the omniscience and prosperity of Shiva, the devotee becomes resplendent in his soul. This is called Sayujya, that is complete identity with the persons well versed in Vedas. It is in this order that one gets salvation by the worship of phallic image of Shiva. Hence, the devotee shall worship Shiv by performing sacred rites, etc., for the acquisition of Shiva's favor. Shiva's sacred rites, Shiva's penance, and jap of Shiv mantra always. Knowledge of Shiv and meditation on him shall be practiced more and more. The time till retirement to bed, the time till death shall be spent in contemplating over Shiv. He shall adore Shiv by means of Sadhyomants and flowers. He will attain welfare. As we learned in the previous chapter, chapter 17, where it mentioned that mere recitation of Om mantra followed by 5 syllables, Om Namah Shivaya, grants a lot of blessings from Lord Shiva. And that's the most easy thing that one could anyway do. The sages said, O excellent one of good rites, please explain the rules governing worship of Shiva in the phallic and the other forms. So here comes the second part, and most of these things that we are going to now hear have also been covered separately in chapter 11. So therefore I said it's a combination of both the chapters. So while in the part 1 of chapter 18 we've understood what is liberation, what is bondage, in this part now we will understand how to seek liberation and how to get free from bondage by worshipping Shivling form of Lord Shiva, and here comes the process. So Suji said, I shall explain, O Brahmins, the procedure of the worship of phallic form. Please listen. The first phallic form is the pranav that confers all desires. It is called Sukshma Pranav, that is the subtle one, if it is Nishkal. The Sthul or the gross one is Sakal, and this consists of 5 constituent syllables. The worship of these two is called a penance. Both of them accord salvation. There are many phallic emblems. Shiv alone can explain them in detail, no one else. Such as are evolved of earthly material are known to me, which I shall explain to you all. So here are the 5 types. Number 1 is Swayambhu. Second is Bindu. Third, Pratishtita. Fourth is Kara. Fifth is Guruling. When he is gladdened by the austerities of devas and sages, Shiva in the form of Nad, Nad is sound of Om. Shiva in the form of Nad assumes the form of a seed under the ground and suddenly piercing the ground above like a germinating sprout manifests himself outside and makes his presence felt. Since this emblem is self-raised, it is called as Swayambhu. And you may also have heard from a lot of Pandits, from elevated souls, that there are certain holy places where this Shivling appeared on its own from under the earth. So that is actually signifying Swayambhu form of Shivling. That is the one that manifested on its own. Like a germinated seed gets, it comes out of the earth. It sprouts. By worshipping it, the devotee gains increasing knowledge automatically. In a gold or a silver plate or on the ground, the devotee draws the picture of phallic emblem, the pure Pranav mantra, and shall invoke it with the rites of Pratishta and Avahan. The Bindu and Nad forms, the stationary or mobile ones, are conceptual but belong to Shiv undoubtedly. Wherever Shiv is sincerely believed to be present, the Lord bestows on the devotee the benefit through that alone. The devotee can invoke the Lord in a natural immobile thing, that is a rock or a stump or an engraved picture, and worship Shiv by 16 upkars, that is services and homage. He will then attain supreme power of Lord and by practice gain knowledge. If the image is installed with pure mind in a pure altar, either by gods or the sages for the realization of the soul, it is called Purush or Parusa, and it comes under the category of the installed phallic image of Shiva. By a regular worship of this phallic image, the devotee will obtain all Aishwaryas, that is human riches. If great Brahmins or rich kings install a ling prepared by artisans, it is called Pratishtita. It accords enjoyment of Aishwarya, that is natural riches, to the worshipper. That which is forceful and permanent is called Prakrit. This is called as Parusa. The one which is weak and temporary is called as Prakrit. The spiritual come mobile form is represented by constituents of the body, that is the navel, the tongue, the tip of the nose, etc. The mountain comes under the Parusa class and the surface of the world under the Prakrit class. Trees, etc. are Parusa and creepers, etc. are Prakrit. So like you know, tree has a very strong root. So Parusa Shivling is that strong and it is installed that way. While Prakrit form of Shivling is mobile and it is very feeble, just like creepers. The Prakrit Ling bestows good women, riches, etc. according to the believers. Now, first of all, I shall mention the Rasling from among Karalings. Rasling is mentioned as the foremost among mobile links or mobile lingas. Rasling is a bestower of all wishes to the Brahmins. The auspicious Banaling is a bestower of vast kingdoms to Kshatriyas. A gold link bestows the ownership of vast wealth on the Vaishyas. A Silali or Silaling, a link made of rock, bestows great purity on the Shudras. A crystal link and a Banaling bestow all sort of wishes on all. If a devotee does not possess a link of his own, there is no harm in using another's link for the purpose of worship. An earthly link shall be used by women, especially by those whose husbands are alive. In the case of widows who are engaged in worldly and sacred rites, a crystal link is recommended. O sages of good rites, in the case of widows, whether they be in a childhood, youth, or old age, a Ras link is specially recommended if they continue to be holding rites. A link of pure crystal bestows all sorts of worldly enjoyment on women. The worship of pedestal grants all cherished desires of the worshipper in this world. So you know what is pedestal, right? So this is that circle ring on which Shivling is placed. A ritualist shall perform all the worship in a vessel. At the conclusion of Abhishek, that is ceremonial bath, the Naivedya, consisting of cooked rice, shall be offered. When the worship is over, the ling shall be kept in a casket and placed separately in the house. Persons who worship their own lingas shall, after the worship is over, offer a food, those articles of diet to which they are accustomed. All non-ritualists shall worship the subtle ling. In the place of floral offerings, they shall use sacred ashes for adoration and food. They shall keep the ling after worship on their head forever. The ash is of three types, derived from ordinary fire, Vedic fire, and Shiva fire. The ash that is derived from ordinary fire shall be used for purification of articles of mud, wood, or metals, and even for grains. Articles of worship like gingerly seeds, cloth, and stale stuff shall be purified with ashes. So also the objects defiled by dogs, etc. The ashes shall be used with or without water according to necessity. The ashes that are resulting from Vedic rites in fire shall be smeared over the forehead at the end of the rites. Since the ashes are purified by mantras, the rite itself takes the form of ashes. Hence, applying the ashes is tantamount to assimilating the sacred rite in one's own Atman. Bilva twigs shall be burnt, repeating the Atman mantra of Aghora. This fire is called Shivagni. The ashes resulting therefrom are called Shivanija. The dung of cow, preferably of Kapila cow, shall be burned first, and then twigs of Palas, Vat, and Bilva shall be burnt. For the sake of resplendence, the ashes shall be taken. The word bhasma or ash means that which is honored and adored. Shiva formerly did so. A king takes the essence of wealth by way of tax in his kingdom. Men burn plants and take the essence thereof. The gastric fire burns different kinds of foodstuffs and with their essence nourishes the body. Similarly, the great Lord Shiva, the creator of the universe, burns the universe presided over by him and takes the essence of the same. After burning the universe, he applies the ashes all over his body. Under the pretext of annihilation, He has taken the essence out of the same. He assigned the essence to his own body. The essence, that is Akash, also known as the ether, constitutes his hair. The essence of wind principle constitutes his face. The essence of fire principle constitutes his heart. That of the principles of water and that of the principles of earth forms his knees. Thus the other limbs too. The Tripundadarka, the three parallel lines of ashes marks over the forehead, is the essence of Trinity. So you've seen three lines on the forehead of Lord Shiva. Those three lines signifies Trinity, that is Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra. Similarly, Maheshwar has attained the essence of everything in the form of tilak on the forehead. The word bhasam means that which has controlled the essence of the whole universe. Bha means vriddhi, that is flourishing essence. Sma means swayam, and manyate considers his own. The word Shiva signifies him who controls everything and whom none can control. Shiva, just as Simha, signifies the creature who attacks other animals and whom other animals cannot attack. The word Shiva is given another interpretation. The syllable S means permanent bliss. The letter I in Shiva means Purush, that is the primordial male energy, and the syllable Va in Shiva means Shakti, the primordial female energy. A harmonious compound of these syllables is called as Shiva. The devotee shall likewise make his own soul a harmonious whole and worship Shiva. Ashes must first be smeared in the dust form and then in the Tripundraka form, that is in that three lines, in the form of those three lines that are drawn. At the time of worship, water is added to the ashes. For mere sanctification, the ashes are used without water. The devotee, whether it is day or night, whether it is man or woman, shall use water with the ashes and wear those three lines, Tripunda or Tripundara, at the time of adoration. He who has these three lines made of ashes with water and performs worship derives the entire benefit of the same, but no one else. Wearing the ashes with Shiva's mantra, he comes out of limitations of any boundaries or any foundations. He is called Shivar or Sivasrami, for he is solely devoted to Shiva. So Sivasrami or Shivasrami means the in Hindi it is called as जो रम गया है शिव में. So Shivasrami. Being the devotee of Shiva and devoted to his sacred rites, he need not observe impurity accruing from death or birth in the family. The characteristic sign of the devotee of Shiva is that he has a circular dot of white ashes or mud put by himself or by his preceptor on the top of his forehead. The word Guru, that is preceptor, signifies a person who wards off all the bad qualities. He who removes all the ill effects of Rajasic qualities, he is Supreme Shiva himself. So there are Rajasic qualities, Tamas or Tamasic qualities, and Sattvic qualities. These three different qualities are there in any human being. But which one dominates? That depends on our actions, our knowledge, our enlightenment, etc. He is beyond the three gunas and assuming the form of preceptor removes the ill effects of three gunas and makes the disciple understand Shiva. Hence, he is the preceptor of disciples who have faith. Hence, the intelligent devotee shall know that the physical body of the preceptor is known as Guruling, that is, the worship of which is service rendered to the preceptor. The word service means an obedience to the order through body, mind, and speech. A disciple with a pure soul shall, of necessity, carry out the order of preceptor, risking his life and staking his possessions, even if the task is not within his power. Dedicating all he has, even his body, to the preceptor, the disciple shall offer his food first to the preceptor and then take his food with his permission. Verily, a disciple, in virtue of his being subjected to discipline, is a son unto the preceptor. The son shall therefore adore his preceptor as father unto him. The real father, the physical begetter, drowns the son in the ocean of worldly existence, but the preceptor, that is the giver of knowledge, the father of learning, enables him to cross the ocean. So, see, such a great difference between our biological father, the one who gives us birth, our biological parents, which is said to, put or drown their children into worldly existence. So they convey that this is the world you've taken birth in. They teach so many things, but that leads to a lot of foundations. But then the guru or the preceptor helps that child to come out of these foundations that are unnecessary. So coming out of foundations doesn't mean that one has to come out of family. It all it means as is that living your family life, living your life in a best possible way without really getting attached to them. So it further says the modes of worship of the preceptor are many. He can be given monetary gifts, he can be physically served, and in so many other ways. Since every limb of the preceptor is a phallus from toe to the head, massaging the feet, presenting him with sandals, bathing him, offering food and money, and similar rites shall be performed to gratify him. Verily, the worship of the preceptor is worship of Shiva, the Supreme Soul. What remains after the preceptor has partaken of food shall be used by the disciple. It will certainly purify him, just as Shiva's leaving of food can be taken by the devotee of Shiv, so also the disciple can take the leavings of the preceptor, even food and water, O Brahmins. Without the permission of the preceptor, anything taken is a theft. One shall accept one's preceptor, a person who knows many special things. Freedom from ignorance is the goal. Only a specialist can achieve that. In order to fulfill a task or a sacred rite, obstacles must be warded off. A rite performed without hindrances in the middle can be fruitful. An intelligent man must worship all deities in order to ward off all sorts of hindrances. The second type or the first type of hindrance is adhyatmic hindrance. For example, the ailment of body, whether it's fever or tremor or any other type of sickness. So you may have noticed that many people who want to sit for meditation, in few minutes only, the legs become benumb or the neck starts paining or there is some other physical illness that one might be going through. So that is the first form of hindrance that has to be overcome in order to achieve Shiv. And this is called as Adhyatmic hindrance. The second type of hindrance is Adhibhautik, that is extraneous one of the physical nature. The visitations of Pishach, the outcome of an anthill, etc., falling of lizards and other insects, the advent of tortoise inside the house, infesting of serpents, untimely flowering of trees, deliveries in inauspicious hours, and other things indicate some future misery. Hence, these are called as adhibhautik hindrances. The third type of hindrance is Adhidevik, that is divine calamities. When lightning strikes, smallpox, cholera, plague, typhoid fever, and similar infectious diseases spread, and bad, awful dreams, evil planets affecting the birth star, all these things occur. These hindrances are called as Adhidevik. In order to ward off these hindrances, and on occasions when one touches a corpse, a chandal, or a fallen man and goes inside without bathing, Shanti Yagna or Shanti Yagya shall be performed to remove the evil effects. The presence of temple, a cowshed, a sanctuary, or one's own courtyard shall be selected for performance of sacrifice. It shall be on a raised platform, at least 2 hastas height. It shall be well decorated. Paddy wing, a bhara, shall be spread on the ground or make a large circle. Diagrams of lotuses shall be made in the middle and in the 8 quarters on the border of circle. A big pot round with a thread is tied shall be placed in the middle and 8 other similar pots shall be placed in the 8 quarters. All of them shall be fumigated with Google. In the 8 pots, bunches of mango leaves shall be placed with darab grass. They shall be filled with water purified by mantras and 5 kinds of articles. Precious gems shall be put in the 9 vessels, one in each. The sensible devotee shall ask his preceptor to preside as a priest. The presiding priest shall be accompanied by his wife. He shall be well versed in rituals. So, as it is mentioned that there are so many rituals that one may have to follow, but I think as we have read in other chapters, God has made it fairly simple. All that God needs from us is 2 things, that we do not injure anyone by our acts and we be a very good human being. I think if these 2 things are done along with recitation of mantra, the pranav mantra, that is Om, followed by 5 syllabled mantra, that is Namah Shivaya, does a great thing. Gold idols of guardians of quarters and Vishnu shall be put in different vessels. Vishnu shall be invoked and worshipped in the central vessel. The respective guardians of different quarters shall be worshipped in the vessels concerned, using the dative case after the name and ending with Nama. The invocation shall be performed by the presiding priest. At the end of the japs, Homa shall be performed to the west of the vessel. It shall be performed for a single day, for 9 days, or for 40 days. The articles of worship used in the beginning shall be continued till the end. At the conclusion, Brahmins, as many in number as the number of offerings made, shall be fed. O scholarly sages, the preceptor and the presiding priest shall partake of sacrificial food alone. Yam is the presiding deity of all calamities, grave diseases, etc. Hence, to gratify Yam, Kalandana shall be made. A replica of Kal, that is god of death, in the form of man holding noose and gourd, shall be made in gold using 100 or 10 gold coins. And this shall be given as a gift along with a sacrificial fee. Ghee or mirror shall be gifted for the sake of quelling ailments. Rich men shall feed 1,000 Brahmins. The poor shall feed 100 Brahmins. And indigent persons shall perform rites according to their capacity. For the acquiescence of evil spirits, the great adoration of Bhairav shall be performed. At the conclusion, that is Maha Abhishek, and Naivedya shall be offered to Shiva. Then a public feeding of Brahmins shall be held. By performing sacrifice in this way, there will be an alleviation of all defects and evils. This Shanti Yagya shall be performed every year in the month of Falgun. In regard to great diseases like leprosy, etc., the vow shall first be taken and the sacrifice performed later on. If incapable of even that, he shall take bath and make a gift. Or he shall make obeisance to sun god 108 times repeating the mantra. The obeisance is performed with the prayer, O Lord, you are great and I am humble. My intellect is dedicated to you. A void thing does not appeal to me. Or rather it says, a void thing does not appeal to you. I am no longer void. I am your slave now. Whatever vestige of egotism remained in me has been dispelled on seeing you. Namaskar, a sacrifice of soul shall be performed accordingly to the ability. All sins perish instantaneously at the circumambulations of Shiva. Sickness is root cause of misery and sin is a cause of sickness. Sins are said to be quelled by the virtue. A sacred rite performed with Shiva in view is capable of removing all sins. It further goes on to say that the pair of births and deaths constitutes the illusory cycle. Starting from pedestal, the devotee shall make circumambulation half the way and return to the pedestal and move anti-clockwise to the place where he stopped before, and returning to the pedestal makes the circle complete. This is the process of circumambulation. When the birth takes place, the obeisance, which is the dedication of the soul, prevents further birth. The pair of births and deaths originates from Maya of Shiv. After such a dedication, the devotee is not born again. As long as the body exists, the Jeev is dependent on activities and he is spoken of as being in bondage. But when the three forms of physical body are under control, it is called salvation by the scholars. Shiv, the primary cause of causes, is the creator of Maya Chakra. He wipes off the Dvand, which is between birth and death, which originates from his Maya. The Dvand, that is the dispute, is conceived and created by Shiv. It shall be dedicated to him, O scholars, it shall be known that circumambulation is highly pleasing to Shiva. The circumambulation and obeisance to Shiva, the great soul, and adoration performed with 16 upkars accord all benefits. There is no sin in the world which cannot be destroyed by circumambulation. Hence, one should dispel all sins by circumambulation alone. A person observing worship of Shiv shall observe silence and perform one of these, that is, a sacred rite, penance, jap, maintenance of knowledge or meditation. He shall observe truthfulness, etc. All sorts of riches, divine body, knowledge, removal of ignorance, and nearness to Shiva are results of sacred rites, etc. The sacred rites yield the benefit by performance. It removes the darkness of ignorance. It wipes off future births. By the achievement of true knowledge, the miseries shall seem as if they did not exist at all. The true devotee of Shiva shall observe the sacred rites, etc., in accordance with the place, time, physical ability, possession of wealth, as befitting his state. The intelligent devotee shall take up his residence in a holy center of Shiv, desist from violence to living beings, without exposing himself to undue strain, and spending only such wealth as he earns by legitimate means. Even water, sanctified by the five-syllabled mantra, is conducive to happiness like cooked food. Even the alms begged and acquired by an indigent devotee is conducive to perfect knowledge. Charitable food of a devotee of Shiv increases devotion to Shiv. Shiv Yogins calls such charitable food sacrificial offerings to Shiva. The devotee of Shiva shall always be scrupulous about the purity of his food whenever or wherever he stays, and whatever means of sustenance he has. He shall observe silence and shall not disclose the secret. To the devotees he shall expound the greatness of Shiv. Only Shiv can know the secret of Shiv mantra, no one else. The devotee of Shiv shall always resort to phallic emblem of Shiva. O Brahmins, one becomes Shiv by resorting to stationary phallic emblem. By worshipping the mobile phallic image, the liberation is certainly gradual. Thus, I have mentioned the achievable and the excellent means of achievement, where achievable is Lord Shiva himself. What has been mentioned formally by Vyasji and what has been heard by me before has been mentioned to you. Welfare attend you all. May our devotion to Shiv be stable and firm. O scholars, whoever reads this chapter by Shiva's grace and whoever listens to this always shall acquire the knowledge of Shiv. So we shall end the combination of two chapters here and we shall proceed with the next chapter next time.
आदिदेव शंकरा तेरे जाप के बिना चले ये सांस किस तरह